Well, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started and let people pop in as they do. I'm Cindy Loffer. I'm with the Midwest Center for Nonprofit Leadership, and welcome today. We're kind of excited to share this all with you. This is sort of a relationships that's developed over the last few years that's taken both of our organizations, Heart to Heart and the Midwest Center, into great directions, I think. I want to just give you a little bit of background on just some information on internships before I introduce our panel here. There we go. So an internship, oh, I gotta get my things here. Technology's been a challenge this morning for us. Anyway, an internship is a form of experiential learning that integrates knowledge and theory learned in the classroom with practical application skills developed in a professional workplace setting. It's not, we're really trying to explain that internships are more than just having someone to help you do your work. It's not just another laborer. There's a benefit to both the intern, a great benefit to the intern and to the organization to get some really quality work from some new generations. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. Here we go. Just some data behind it, the benefits. Black and Hispanic and first generation students are overrepresented in unpaid internships and underrepresented in paid internships. This data is from NACE, which I've just forgotten what it is. What is it?
National Association.
Thank you. National Association of Colleges and Employers. Also, first generation students are disproportionately represented in internships. And also interns are, unpaid interns are not considered employees, so they don't get some of those benefits like the harassment and discrimination practices that an employee would benefit from. And then finally, students who have done an internship receive more job offers, are 15% more likely to be, are 15% less likely, to be unemployed, are employed quicker after graduation, and they earn 6% more than people that don't. So there's just such a benefit for the student to be in an internship. I want to share a little bit first before we get started, an internship that the Midwest Center has been doing for over 20 years now. And it's called the Edward A. Smith Summer Leadership Internship Program. It is a kind of, I think, a higher level internship. It's open to Block students only at UMKC. So that could be like master's and undergrad. Undergrads are juniors and seniors only. They can be marketing, management, finance, MPA students, MBA students, real estate. So just a lot of different majors in there. The students have a 36-hour employment, a job for the summer. It's a 10-week program. This is a paid internship. So we being the Midwest Center, contribute half of it, and the employer contributes half of it. The students receive $7,000 for the summer. For an employer, that's about $10 an hour for an employee for the length of the internship. So they have the job, and I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about project-based and what we mean by that. They also have a leadership, and the reason this is 36-hour employment for the summer is because on Friday afternoons they come here to this room often for leadership seminar, and we talk to them beforehand about some of the skills they want to learn. We obviously want qualified students to go to the employers, but we also want them to grow throughout the summer in leadership. So we talk to them about what some of the things that they would like to have at the end of the summer. Maybe they want to learn how to do public speaking better, or manage people, or understand things in a more strategic way. So some of those leadership skills that they're hoping to gain over the summer, we talk with the employer and share those with the employer so they can also help along the way. Not going out of their way, but if there's opportunities that would be good for the student to sort of participate in to enhance those, we encourage that. And then we also have mentoring. So on Friday afternoon, so we kind of alternate between those two. So we have mentoring with them where we sit down one-to-one. So every student, and there's about 4 to 5 students in this cohort. I should have said that at the beginning. That get mentoring. So this is the 3 pieces of it. The project-based means that we ask the organization, the nonprofit, they all are in nonprofits, to find projects for them, give them some responsibility, give them some ownership, give them some, a task to do, something to create. We've had people create all kinds of programs, things like, volunteer programs, mentoring programs. We've had a student a couple of years ago who I think went up above and beyond. She was working at a thrift store and they wanted to sort of reach out. They're not far from here, from campus. They wanted to reach out and sort of learn about their community. They're very much community based. And they wanted to know more about what the community really needed. And so she did surveys. She talked to people around the community. She also ended up putting barrels for food and for clothing and other supplies on campus here, which wasn't something that was in I think their original plan, but she saw it as a need and as a help to them. So she did that. So that's kind of what we mean by project-based. Some students have done a huge project over the summer. Most times they do smaller projects, maybe 3 or 4 of them throughout the summer. So this is a project that will be for this summer. We will be doing it again. We will be sending out application information shortly to nonprofits to sort of register for it or to apply to be a placement, as we call them. Look for that probably in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I wanted to move on to our panel. So I would like to introduce the panel that we have here. The panel is all from Heart to Heart. Heart to Heart International, and 2 of them are employees there, and one of them was an employee there last summer. She was their intern last summer. We've been working with Heart to Heart for several years on this. They just have gratefully really liked our interns that we've sent them. We've sent them some pretty great people, I think. And they have come up with really amazing projects for the interns we've sent them. So we've really established a kind of a great relationship here through the Smith internship program. So first I'd like to introduce AnnMarie Thomas. AnnMarie currently serves as Vice President of People and Organizational Development. What a great thing, people, to be Vice President of People.
People are the best.
Yes. AnnMarie has 20 years of experience in volunteer engagement, marketing, communications, and community outreach. She has a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing nonprofit organizations. And these are going down in line here, not intentionally, but they arrived that way today. Gabby Martinez is next, and she's the Volunteer Services Specialist at Heart to Heart International, where she has spent nearly 4 years supporting meaningful volunteer and internship experiences and developing Heart to Heart International's paid internship program. I'm not sure what. Outside of Heart to Heart International, Gabby serves as the Young Ambassador Board for the Children's Place and volunteers as a horseback riding sidewalker with Great Plains Adaptive Riding Academy. Jeanie Shoemaker is an undergraduate student at the Block School in UFKC who is majoring in business administration with an emphasis in management. They are graduating this May, so they are currently preparing for job searching. They are particularly interested in nonprofit organizations and hope to find a job with one in the near future. So with that said, my first question kind of goes out to Heart International. Gabby and AnnMarie, can you share what your internship practice was like 5 years ago and how internships have evolved over the last 3 years at Heart to Heart?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started in talking about kind of the past and what it looked like. Our internship program, while it existed, it was really more of an ad hoc. Departments would say, oh, I'm looking for an intern. But sometimes what they were really looking for was maybe a 30-hour-a-week volunteer who could come in and do admin work. And so really having the discussion of what it means to be an intern was something that we internally decided, we find value in the idea of internships. It's great to care about our mission, but we also have a responsibility to the next generation who's going to care about our mission and what that was going to look like. And so about 3-ish years ago, 3.5 maybe at this point, we decided, hey, we really need to create something a little bit more formal, to look at it as its own thing, to decide what we wanted an internship program to look like, because you all know, you have seen varieties of internships, probably either yourself or other organizations that you've been in. And there are several ways to kind of put that together. But having some kind of framework was not only going to support the intern that was coming in, but it was going to support our departments and helping them find the quality projects and things that they needed so that when the intern got there, it was successful. So that's when Gabby came along. And we said, hey, Gabby, do you want to create a new internship program? And she said, hey, I would love to do that. And so I'll kind of turn that over and you can share how that kind of broke down.
So I think when we started about beginning to create more of a formal program, based on all the data that Cindy shared earlier, I talked with AnnMarie and a couple other staff members, and we just said, what do you think about paying interns? And thank you so much to Heart to Heart, who's been very supportive in doing that. And I think it's worked out fantastically for us. And so now every year we host about 3 to 4 paid interns. We have a formal defined onboarding process now. We have a screening process, an application, an offboarding process that's defined. There's regular check-ins with the intern supervisors and with our department. They do a final presentation that they share with all of the staff. And so now we have, kind of set things that they have to do during the internship that we've found make it a better experience for both the intern and our departments.
And, speaking anecdotally, we know that it makes a big difference for the staff and for the interns that are coming. But actually speaking factually, when we first started rolling this out, we had one department that was like, hey, I love interns. I would love to take an intern. And several departments were like, ugh, I like the idea of an intern, but I'm not sure, what that means for us. And this last year, the internship program has become a competitive program internally. And what's great is we actually budget for it separately. So it also allows departments to be a little bit more open in how we want to do that application piece. And so we had 4 departments who were interested in hosting interns. 2 of those departments have never hosted an intern before. And so, speaking just from the feedback that we've gotten, but also just the numbers speak, right? Clearly something's going on that other departments are seeing and they want to be part of.
Nice. You guys have a designated desk and email for the intern. Why is that important? Why was that an important part of this?
This is one of the things that I credit AnnMarie with. AnnMarie is frequently asking myself and our staff, do you have the resources you need to do your job? What else do you need to do your job? And so for us, when we were starting this program, it was like, well, obviously they need a workspace to call their own. And then all of our other staff members have their own email address. And so it just made sense from kind of a functional standpoint, but then also like that emotional standpoint. We use Microsoft throughout our workplace, and so it made sense for them to have their own Outlook account and everything. But then also we wanted them to feel like they were a part of staff and that they had all of the tools they needed to succeed. And so we just decided that those 2 items were kind of a non-starter. They needed those. I also think having a set workplace sends a message when an intern starts that there's somewhere that we've designated to be their space. They're working with us, usually a whole semester or a whole summer. They usually come in the office about 2 to 3 times a week, which is similar to the rest of our staff. And so it just made sense for them to have that space.
Jeanie, how did it feel to be welcomed that way, to have, to be on board in such a way? And was it different than what you expected you were going to have?
Yeah, so the message really got across. I immediately felt like, wow, I feel like I'm part of the staff, like from day one. It was amazing just being onboarded in such a way because I was coming into a completely unfamiliar environment. I had no idea what was going on. I was just hoping I could figure out where I was going to go. I didn't expect to have a desk, let alone all of the supplies that I was given. I didn't think I'd have my own email. And in that way, I could communicate as my own self. I wouldn't have to rely on AnnMarie as my supervisor or Gabby to communicate to other people for me. I really had a chance to put myself in there and understand how I fit into the whole network. And it was really fun because I felt like part of the organization from day one. And I think the thing that took me the longest was just to find out the layout, because that building, the building was quite the maze. But yeah, it's just such a sense of individuality, and I could tell that they really cared about the interns. So it was not what I was expecting, because I've heard so many horror stories. And the other interns had mixed opinions about their organizations, but I got really lucky with Heart to Heart International. They really treat the interns like part of the organization, and I really appreciated it. Yeah,
Because you are.
Yeah. Heart to Heart, can you talk about the trust required to utilize interns for projects, for something, bigger than go file this, even to lead projects? How are you sure they will represent you well and do the work to the standards that Heart to Heart has?
I can speak to this. So aside from the block internship, which we, have built this great relationship and have a lot of trust with you all, we know that you all interview the candidates and everything. And so we trust that whoever we get paired with is going to be a great fit. But aside from that block internship, we hire, 2 to 3 other interns every year. And we do the application screening process ourselves. And I think that builds some trust with the departments, because it's usually myself and the intern supervisor screening and interviewing with them. And so they get a little bit more say in who their final intern will be. That interview allows us to, learn a little bit more about their history and get to know them, as much as you can in a meeting or two. But I think that helps build trust, since those supervisors, get to choose who exactly they'll work with for that semester. The other things I'll say are that right now our program is only for students age 18 or older and who are enrolled in a post-secondary education program, or who have graduated within a certain time recently. And so, these are all post-secondary adults who we would hire for an entry-level position any other time. And so it's, we just kind of were like, why wouldn't we hire them and trust them to do an internship? One of the other things is during the interviews, I usually like to ask interns how they found out about us, why Heart to Heart, why are they interested in doing this internship? And usually, someone indicates that they looked around on our website a little bit or have worked with nonprofits before. That kind of is a good gauge to know that somebody understands the importance of nonprofits and kind of that depth of being responsible for the work you're doing. So.
Well, and I'll jump in and just add a couple other things, because that trust piece is probably why when we first started, we only had one department that was interested, because they had worked with interns before and had a really great experience. And so, if you can find your early adopters within your organization, the people inside that you trust, right? Because you're trusting this intern to come in, but in our position, we're also trusting that department that we're placing them in is going to have a well-defined project for them to do, is going to offer them the managerial support that they need, all those things that makes that relationship good on both sides. And I find if you can find, one department or one placement, you don't have to do everything at once. Pick one that you feel really good about, and then they set an example both internally and externally, right? If you're also worried about having the means or the bandwidth to do all of that additional interviewing that Gabby was talking about, finding a program like the Block School is really amazing, because they do a lot of that for you, right? And so the trust that we have for the Block School spilled over into the trust that we were going to have for that intern. And that's one of the reasons why we know that when we get an intern from the Block School, they're also looking to make the best placement possible, because everybody wants this to feel good at the end. So either internally creating that system, people like things that are expected, right? Internally, externally, they want to know what expectations are. But if you don't have the bandwidth for all of that, find your partners within the community who are already looking for good placement. So that would be the other piece to that.
And we want a great experience, not just a good experience.
Yes, a great experience, an amazing experience.
Yes.
Gabby would be happy to talk with you about it.
So even a little more, so talking about those departments and stuff, once an intern is placed within the department, how do you create, you know, a successful experience becomes that shared responsibility between the intern and the supervising staff. Looking back, what lessons did you learn about how best to support the staff as they come to figure out how to do that in their roles as supervisors, ensuring a consistently that you can provide a strong and meaningful experience for the intern?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of things I would share that we, into our internship program, created a internship supervisor agreement, which sounds very formal and kind of scary, but
She's making sign it. It's not that bad.
It really was just to put some information to share with them. You know, when we started talking about what an internship in their departments could look like, what those expectations are, and you know what kind of information, you know, as the internship goes on, like what kind of information I want to be kept in the loop about. And so I think that's something that's been very helpful. I also try to regularly check in with not only the interns, but the intern supervisors during the internships, to just make sure that things are going all right. So those are two of the things that I would share, but I don't know if you have anything.
No, I feel like that was like the second half of the growth of the program. You know, we really spent the first part of the program focusing on what it was going to look like to bring in the intern. And then on the back end, as we started getting more people who were supervising interns, we just started asking them, you know, I say we, Gabby, we started asking them, you know, what do you need to be more successful? What do you need as a manager of an intern to feel like you have the resources that you need? And so from there, you know, they were kind of co-creators in making that work for them.
And Jeanie, what about that inclusion feeling? How did that make you feel for the summer and thinking how the summer would go for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned this a bit before with my previous response, but it set me up for realizing that these people are going to trust me and put responsibility in the projects that I do. I'm not just going to be given menial tasks and I'm going to be treated as a part of the organization, because I am part of the organization. And it's just that understanding that this isn't an internship where they're just doing it to put out the position so it like looks good on their record. It's to actually fulfill projects that they need to be done, and they want people that they trust to do it. So it was also building that relationship. I realized that I needed to give back as much as I was given and trust them as much as they trusted me. And so a lot of the things that I did at Heart to Heart International was trying to understand the people that I was communicating with, because one of the projects I even had to talk to every department just to gather information. And that was like a big social thing of understanding where people fit in the organization by just talking to them and then working with them. So it really gave that as inclusive of an outlook as I could. And that just continued throughout the entire internship. So yeah.
I'm going to throw you a question that's not scripted for here, but I know that was a really great thing for you. And this kind of goes back to our internship a little bit about the leadership. So talk about just that a little bit about what leadership meant to you through this and how they helped you with that.
Yeah, so this is the Smith Internship Leadership Program. So it's a bit different than the typical one. It's because you're taking a class alongside with taking an internship. And it was really interesting to go to class and learn about parts of leadership that I could apply directly to the internship, because I was in the like human resources section and the people services. So I was getting a lot of opportunity to talk to people who were higher up in the chain and understanding where does that trickle down to the other people? How do I need to communicate to different groups of people so that it makes sense? Because the leadership aspect it's not just leading from the top of an organization. In fact, leading from the middle of an organization can sometimes be the most powerful, because you're the communicating bridge between the people who are at the bottom and the people who are at the top. And you have to juggle all of that. So I felt like I was a lot of a middleship leader in the internship. And that was a really good experience, because I could apply exactly what I was learning in the Smith internship classes to the program that I was doing and all the projects that I was doing in Heart to Heart.
Thanks.
Actually, I'd love to speak just really briefly to the project that Jeanie was working on, because that's really interesting. I don't think I'd heard that perspective of like that leadership piece before. And I just want to make sure that you also recognize that the project leadership piece that you did within that. And when we're talking about trust, this was a project that was doing an inventory on our SOPs throughout our organization. Something that we had on our list of things that, hey, we really need to get this done, but we knew it was going to be like super labor intensive to do, right? And so, to your credit and to the credit of the people here who helped you in that leadership piece, when we handed you that project, we said, here are the results that we want. Please work on getting those results. And I know from talking to you over time, you definitely took and applied what you learned from each one of those meetings. And by the end of that, it was great because I felt really well informed. I felt like you were managing the project in a way that you were keeping me informed. So I didn't have to worry about that. But also, I didn't have to tell you how to manage the project because your advisors helped you with that. So I just want to point out, like, that's a really good example of a project that was meaningful for us as well. I'm glad it was meaningful for you. But it was also just a really important thing that we needed to do that we would not have had the capacity to do without an intern.
Right. Of course, having an intern is great. Having any more labor around, more people to do work is great. But beyond that, what are some of the less obvious benefits of having an intern?
Yeah. One of the first things I think of is that these are students who are currently learning the most current standards and trends. And so they're able to share a lot more up-to-date information with your organization. One of the other things that I talk about is they may have a specific major or skill set that they're learning that you may not have. For example, we've had interns who have come in and worked with our marketing department on social media. And they've shared new features on Instagram and, different things that we might not have been using before. Another example is that we've had students who were in an emergency management business continuity program, and they had written a business continuity plan for practice as part of their classes. I would say most of our staff probably hasn't written a full business continuity plan before, and so that was something where we were able to use expertise that people on staff probably didn't have. We might have been able to, pull something together, but it might not have been as skilled as someone who's currently learning it would have been. Other examples are, you're reaching a demographic that you might not have been reaching before. And then you're getting, insight and new ideas from a younger generation who you may not work with as much.
It sounds like you're pretty open to hearing from the younger generation, from a different demographic. How about the rest of your staff? Do people listen to them? Or, I agree with you that I think they have some great ideas and they can certainly help me on some social media or things like that. But how was it getting other people to listen to them?
I feel like
we got lucky. I know from working in other organizations that can be a bit of a challenge. I think part of the value for us is we do have an 18 and up program. And so our interns are usually a little bit more experienced. They're a little bit further along in their coursework. I also feel like we have a smallish organization. We have 55 staff members who are there. And so we leverage each other's knowledge on a regular basis. And in addition to, social media and those kinds of platforms, just technology in general, that was, if you haven't already caught on, Jeanie was my intern. One of the things that she was able to do for me was, we use SharePoint and we use it internally for our intranet. And I needed to be able to put up new posts and whatnot. And I knew it wasn't going to be hard, but it was a barrier for me, right? And so I could say, Jeanie, will you please figure this out and then teach me? And so, I think that's part of that piece too, is we've had good interns who have provided good insight. And then in turn, we want more, right? So I think we've just gotten really lucky, and our staff is awesome. So.
Yeah.
Jeanie, do you have anything to add to that? Because you experienced it.
You
feel like people listen to you?
No, it was amazing. I didn't expect to. I was talking to managers' departments. I didn't think they'd want to spend the time of day to talk to me, but it was really, I just felt like I was talking to another person on the same level, but they were very understanding and they were very responsive because they always got back to me when I sent them, hey, can you help out with this? And then they get back really quick. And if they can't, then they just forward me to a person that can help me. So yeah, they were super responsive, very communicative.
Awesome.
I didn't have any problems. Yeah.
Very good. Jeanie, what are some of the things that you expected to get out of it? What were some of the benefits you were expecting out of the internship that were important to you?
Yeah, so it was my first experience being in a workplace. So that was what I really wanted. I wanted to understand what it would be like outside of a classroom and to be working with people and not just responding to a professor that's just giving assignments and I'm doing everything for like a numerical grade. It was understanding, where am I intrinsically motivated? How can I contribute to organizations in a way that's important to me and important to the organization? How does it look like working as just an intern, but also as a person in the office? Because that is the direction that I wanted to go in. So I wanted to understand, is this the path for me? Especially because in nonprofit organizations, I've always been interested. So being able to intern at a nonprofit organization was just like the perfect equation of, this is where I want to go. So do I want to continue down this path, or do I need to change direction? And through this program, I realized that's exactly where I want to go, and I'm going to continue trying to go down this path. But I just wanted to see if it would give me direction and give me clarity on these things that were so amalgamous in my head of, I'm not sure what it would look like, but once I experienced it, then I realized this is what I want.
Talk about the stipend a little bit. Is money a deal breaker? What does it mean to get paid? And you haven't, I don't think, had an unpaid internship, but what do you think it means to be paid for the work you're doing?
I'm a special case because I'm staying with my parents, so money isn't typically as much of a problem for me. And I'm having scholarships, so most of my education is paid for in that way. But I do think that having a paid internship is a way of understanding that the organization really cares about you, because they wouldn't be paying you if they didn't like put trust in you, if they didn't think that you needed to be there, because otherwise they could just like make you make coffee, make printouts. And when they pay you, you realize that they're accepting you as part of the organization, they're accepting responsibility for you, and they're recompensating you for it. And money is like a way to do that. It's just a really quick way off the bat to realize that they really care about you and they know the effort that you're going to be putting into this program. So it's not really a deal breaker for me. I just think that it really sets a precedent for what the organization is expecting from you and what you can expect from the organization.
It says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heart to heart, what benefits do you make sure you give to these students? What is something that you really focus on as far as providing for the students?
Yeah, one of the things, and Jeanie kind of touched on this, one of the things that I hear often when I'm doing those screening calls or interviews is students saying, because I asked that question, what do you want to get out of this internship? Is there a specific skill set or, software you want to use? And a lot of times their answer is just that they've learned about all this stuff in their classes, and maybe they've done like a practice project or something, but they've never gotten to do it for real. And so a lot of times they're just like, I just want to be able to like actually apply this in a real world setting. And so we try and give them the opportunity to do that. I think we also try and make it a real world, like safe scenario that they can do that in. If it's the first time you're applying this new theory or skill or whatnot, having an environment where you can work on a new project and it not be perfect or make mistakes, and then be able to, build off of that constructive feedback that you might get back. Some of the other things that we try and do for the interns are we always try to incorporate some sort of professional development aspect. And so that might be meeting with different departments to learn about what the work they do and kind of have that opportunity to network. We also are very lucky to be invited to a program that allows our interns who are women to attend a seminar. It's for about a day or so, alongside other speakers and other interns from around Kansas City. And so we usually have our interns in the summer participate in that. Those are some of the things I would say. One last specific thing that I really like to mention to the interns and make sure that it's part of their experience is getting to work with any of the sort of database or software programs that we have. One of the things that I saw when I was originally applying for nonprofit jobs, and that I feel like I still see, is organizations are looking for people that have experience with logistics, NXT, Classy, Donor Perfect, any of those, either donor or volunteer management softwares. And I feel like once you have used one, you can kind of pick up the rest. And so, we tried to get all the interns experience with NXT, where I'd show them logistics a little bit just to give them kind of a little bit, something extra that they could add to their resume. So
Nice. How do you use reflection in your internship program? What is its role, its benefit, and why do you feel it's so important?
So we do, there's three things that I like to talk about. We have all of our interns do a final presentation at the end of their internship. They talk about what they learned, what projects they worked on, to really give staff an idea of what those projects, what the results ended up being. They talk about what they found challenging, what they liked about the internship, what they didn't like or would change. One of the other things that we do as part of their offboarding is we have them fill out an anonymous survey, asking them different questions about their experience, kind of some of those same questions, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they changed. And then I also try and do that on their last day. We have like an offboarding conversation. We go over some housekeeping things, of course, but then I try and have a conversation and just get from them anything that they might not have talked about in the presentation or on the survey, and see if there's just anything else that they, would let us know about their experience that we can try and improve for the next one. So
Thanks. So
Actually, can I add?
of course.
So Jeanie and I did a really fun reflection at the end, and I will admit I am a reflection junkie. It is a big thing that I really enjoy doing. And I have not hosted personally an intern in many, many years. This is the first intern that I've hosted at Heart to Heart International. I got lucky to get this placement because, as I mentioned, it's very competitive now. And when we got to the end, to Gabby's point, a lot of times, interns are finishing up with us and they're going to be going on and looking for a job. And so we actually sat down and did a reflection with your resume. And it was such a great reflection exercise because it helped me recognize the things that I want to do again or the things I might want to do differently next time we have an intern. And also those of us who have been in the workforce, we might know how something translates differently than an intern who's coming in. Jeanie knew she worked with NXT. I know that means that she can put down that she's worked in donor databases, right? And so that was just a really good experience on my side. I hope it was really great for you too. But that piece of reflection is something that I want to add moving forward with all of my interns.
Yeah. What are some of the, is there anything that you've learned from interns in this reflection process? Is there any of the surveys or anything that you've sort of changed things, you've incorporated?
Yeah, I think one of the new things that we added based on the feedback we got from interns, both in the survey and then just kind of anecdotally, was this year was the first year that we had our interns meet with all of the different departments early in their onboarding. I think that happened within the first 2 weeks or so. And that was something that we hadn't done before. In the past, they had, kind of worked with other departments naturally as part of their projects and got to know a lot of the staff, but it wasn't something that we intentionally did at the start. That is something that we do for our other staff. And so based on their feedback that, they liked getting to know the other departments and learning what they all do and everything, we decided that we should dedicate that time to allowing them to do that. And so we made it hopefully easy for staff. I know some of our staff are on the call, so maybe they can attest, but we made a sign up Genius page and they just went on and signed up for a slot with all of the interns together, and then spent, maybe 30 minutes or so talking about what they do, what their department does, and how they might be working alongside the interns. So that was something new that we added. We've gotten a lot of feedback on things that we should keep that they liked. And so some of that was having a kind of formal orientation. I give them a document that's kind of a checklist of here's what you should get done, hopefully your first day, your first week, your first 2 weeks. And I think that just kind of has been helpful because coming in, you might not know what to expect. You might be nervous. And so I think having a plan to lay out for them shows that you're, prepared, and kind of gives that sense of calm in the chaos a little bit. So I think that's about all I would say. Or I guess one other thing that I did want to mention on that one was one of the pieces of feedback that I like to share that we got from an intern was that they felt like our staff really involved them in like all aspects of their work. They were invited to meetings that, they felt like maybe they wouldn't have pictured getting invited to. They felt like we didn't keep secrets or talk around them just because they were an intern. And they found that really valuable. So
Nice. Jeanie, what value did that have for you?
Yeah, so what AnnMarie mentioned earlier, the resume reflection was a really eye-opening experience because it put into perspective a lot of things that I didn't even realize that I did. Because sometimes you just go through and do projects and then you don't really think about it. But then reflecting back at the very end was realizing, wow, I learned a lot of skills that I could say to employers in the future. Hey, I've done things with this. I'd be happy to learn more. Or I'm able to learn things like this really easily. So even if I don't know anything about it, I'm more than willing to learn. I've done things like this before, and just getting that experience. But also, I think one of the biggest things for me was the final presentation that we had to do. Because it's sitting down and compiling all the projects and the things you've learned over the semester, including the class, and then standing up and presenting not only in front of the organization, but in front of people from the block school, and even the dean was there. But it was just it's like speaking about yourself is a lot different than just going through the flow. So I really like that aspect of the final presentation, even though I was dreading it at the beginning. I'm very glad I did it because I have a much better understanding of what I did and what I need to work on moving forward.
So there's a lot of things to think about when you start to put a program like this together, as I'm sure you want to attest to. You've got to think about the internship program, your staff's interest, their acceptance of it, which is you've described changed over the few years and things. How you host and supervise and create projects, making sure that they do understand really what you need them to do. There's also the intern, making it a high level experience for them in accomplishing work for your mission. What would you like to tell organizations as they consider a program and creating that program? We've talked about some of the stuff already as putting things out as you go on, but what advice would you give people to start something like this?
Yeah, I have a few things that I but one of the first things I did once we started, figuring out a lot of it was figuring out the process of how to do this. Like how do we pay the interns? What does their onboarding look like? What does offboarding look like? All that kind of stuff. Once we had a lot of that written down and everything, one of the first things we did was host a lunch and learn session for our staff. And so I just sat there with a PowerPoint and talked about, this is what an internship could look like. This is how an internship is different from a volunteer placement. This is how we pay them, why we pay them. Here's some projects that interns have done in the past as examples. So I think it was a beneficial opportunity for departments to get kind of a baseline for what internships could be and be able to, ask questions about it and everything. And see who was interested at that point. And so I would recommend, maybe doing something like that for your organization if that's something that you might be interested in. A couple of the other things I'll say are that, as we were building the program, and initially we had some early adopters, but we had other departments, who weren't sure. They, what might their projects be? How do I manage an intern for 10 weeks, that kind of thing. And so along the way, I would just say we nudged some departments and said, have you considered this? We can brainstorm and talk about what that could look like. But we never forced any departments to host an internship. And I would say that's pretty important because nobody wants to be forced to do something like that. And, wouldn't be a good experience for both the intern and the department. So the end of internship presentations were, I think, kind of like the winner for us. That really gave our staff an opportunity to hear the interns present I know every time I heard them present, I was like, wow, these students are, phenomenal public speakers. And just hearing them talk about the projects they did and the passion they had for them, I think that translated over to staff very well, and really let them picture what an intern could look like in their department. That's actually one of our departments that's hosting this upcoming summer. They had been thinking about hosting an intern for a while. And, every time we talked, it was just kind of like, oh, I'm not sure how it would work in our department yet. And so let me think about it. And then after those presentations, they came to me and said, okay, I've got it. Like, let's do it. So I would definitely recommend some sort of reflection like that. And then lastly, I would say, and Jeanie touched on this a little bit, but I would just say I feel like our staff has been so welcoming and inviting to our interns. Our CEO makes an effort to get to know each intern individually. And that's something that as an intern, I didn't always get in my internships. And I think that has a huge impact on how your interns will view your organization and come back as volunteers or staff or maybe as donors in the future. So.
I think too, one thing that, and maybe you're going to mention it, but is that you guys sort of encourage people to make lists, like put those projects you want to have done that you just aren't getting to, put them over there on that list. And then that's what interns will do.
Yeah.
That's my dream list. I keep it on my whiteboard. Well, because there's always those things where you're thinking to yourself, I could do this next thing that would be really amazing, but to get there, I need to get through this barrier. I need to get through this project. Oh man, this would be super valuable for the organization, but we just don't have the margin to do it, right? And I'm a firm believer, whether it's interns, volunteers, staff, don't need to make things up for them to do, right? Like, and if you do, they're gonna notice that you are, right? Like, that's not a good use of your time. That's not a good use of their time. But often that is where, staff and even myself was like, well, but what would I have them do, right? Because you want to be thoughtful about the projects that you hand off, because they're going to hand them back to you, right? And so having a clear end, like a clear conclusion is great, or having something that can take you even further. So for example, Jeanie wrote blog posts for us that up until recently, I told her I just used her last one. I had to write my own. It's ridiculous. But that thought ahead of, man, I really wanted to be able to do this communication strategy of these blog posts. I don't have the margin to do it well, but an intern could provide that future information. And so that was really great. I made a few additional notes as Gabby was speaking. I do think I'm really glad that you mentioned that those end of kind of term projects, because that is when more departments got inspired, right? Like we would do these presentations, the interns would do these awesome presentations, talk about the real work they were getting to do, and then the other staff could kind of visualize what that looked like. But as she was talking through that, I also want to, mention one of the reasons that I think our program is successful is because we have an individual who's designated to ensure that the program is running right. So staff feel like they have a person that they can go to. The interns feel like they have a person they can go to. And she manages a few things for us that make it go really well. Like she manages making sure that we're writing good job descriptions. Gabby also manages the schedule. That was something that grew over time. We understood we were going to get better placements if we understood when interns were looking for internships, right? Seems like a minor thing, but so she now has us on a schedule, right? Where she, can reach out to departments and say, by this time, I need to know if you want an intern, and then if you're accepted, well, by this time, we need your job description, and that means that when we get to the budgeting process, we know how many interns we want to budget for. I also like to remind everybody that a strategy doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be well defined. So take out what you have the margin to do. If that means that you have the ability to take on, one 20-hour-a-week internship, and that's what you have the capacity to do that and do it really well. This last year, we probably could have in theory, had 6 departments interested in internships. But we realized we don't have the capacity to do six interns, screening and placement and all of those things. And so, it is thinking about the scale of what you want to do and taking on what you have the capacity to do too, because you're going to feel better about it. It's going to be a more high quality experience all the way around. And you're going to want to do it again. And so, those would be my additional pieces of advice there.
Okay. Jeanie, what do you wish you had known before the internship? And what do you wish Heart to Heart had known?
Well, this is a special case because this internship does not, because like said before, the screening is different. So I did all of my screening through the block school. Like that was my interviews and my applications. That was done through there. So I didn't really have that connection with Heart to Heart International until I really stepped into the door. We did have a meeting on Zoom a couple days before I came into the office, but that was so introductory that I didn't really get a feel for anything. And I don't think they got a really good feel for who I was either. So I would just say under normal circumstances, you would get more because you would be interviewing with the people that you're going to be working with, and they would also get a better feel of who you are. So this is a special case where I would have, of course, liked to have more of that introductory phase. But because of the onboarding and welcoming, that wasn't a problem at all. Like all of my worries and anxieties were gone within the first week because I realized that there were tons of people I could go to for help. They already knew that I had no idea what was going on. So they were happy to just say, here's, go to these people, go to us. If you have questions, here's like a whole packet of resources. Yeah, because the first couple of weeks I just spent going through the resources that they gave me and completing the onboarding process. And then I figured out where I was going. And then through the weekly meetings I had with AnnMarie, she knew where I was in the projects I was, and she was getting to know me as I was getting to know her, and I was getting to know all the people in the organization. So really, I think there wasn't a lot that I would change at all. It's just because of the way that the program was oriented. Of course, it's going to be different than the typical internship experience, but I actually really liked it that way because it was different. So I got the experience of going into somewhere, not really knowing what's going on, and then being adaptive and understanding I need to get into the mindset of figuring things out. And there's not always going to be someone who can tell me everything. So there are people who can answer questions, but it's really understanding I need to figure out how things work. And it was an exciting experience, and I don't think I would really change anything about it.
Okay. What would you just give a student? What advice would you give a student as they're thinking about an internship and some of the things maybe they should look for in a placement before they make a decision?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to say the thing that probably everyone says, but you should absolutely get an internship. It's an experience that I don't think can be replaced by anything else because it's different than being a student. It's different than being a full-fledged employee. You're kind of in the in-between, and it's really important because you get both sides of being very inexperienced and also seeing the experience that you need to become a full-fledged worker. And the whole thing with that I noticed is that I really underestimated myself because I thought that coming from the classroom to the workplace, I would know nothing. And that actually wasn't really the case. I knew a lot more than I realized, and there was a lot more value that I had to offer to the workplace and to the projects that I did than I realized that I could. And it's a different environment. It's not necessarily like a completely new world. And that's what I was thinking it was when I originally went in. So I want to tell people, like, don't underestimate yourself. You can actually figure out a lot just by going there and doing it. Just sitting down and thinking, I'm going to try and figure this out until I get it right. And by having that mindset, you can really get through pretty much anything, especially in the internships. And I think I was really able to find my footing super easily this way. And it was just, especially the book that I read in the program that we had, the leadership program, it made me realize a lot about myself, of that we have a lot more value than we think. It's not just a numerical grade value, because your employer isn't going to look at what grade you got in your business administration class in freshman year. They don't care. They want your skills that you can apply then and there. And then that made me realize that there was a lot that I could offer and there was a lot that I could learn. I didn't just have to have all the skills off the bat. That's what working is for. You're supposed to gain the experience as you go, because that's just part of the experience. So I would say, don't think you need to have everything figured out from day one. If you do, then that's just strange, really.
And don't be strange.
Yeah.
it up to any questions that people have.
Maybe I could ask a question.
Again.
What if you are a nonprofit, which I'm assuming we have a lot of people out in the audience who are with nonprofits, how would they best go about finding interns? What would be the best way to do that?
I can speak to that a little bit. One of the things that we do is we post our application we use ADP, and so it's on our website and whatnot. And then I will work with the departments, and honestly, they help me out a lot because I don't always know the types of majors or programs that might be out there and that are best fit for their internships. And so based on, kind of their responses, I'll reach out to universities, especially around the Kansas and Missouri area, who have programs. So for our disaster response internships, reaching out to schools who have an emergency management or a disaster response type program. And I'll just email their dean or, professor, or our staff may have connections to those universities as well. And I'll just ask if they would be willing to share this internship with their students. Since it's a paid position, usually most professors are very happy to do that, especially. So that's one of the things that we do. And organically, I think we're able to get a lot of applicants. There's also some resources like Handshake, which your organization can sign up to get on. I think it's free, and there's extra paid things you can do. But a lot of universities are on there, and it's kind of just a platform that students can use to apply for internships and full-time employee positions on that platform. So those are a couple of the methods that I've used.
I'm going to say basically the same thing. So Handshake, we have not used that as much just because they don't seem to adequately limit it to Block students for some reason. So I get all kinds of people outside of that. So I haven't personally used it. I did the first few years, but I haven't used it as much. So you may not find us there. I had people all over the country actually get me through Handshake. I do think Nonprofit Connect may have something they used to, so they may have something about, I know they've got some volunteer opportunities, and obviously they have employment opportunities, but I do believe they have some internship opportunities too, or they use, like I said, they used to. The other thing, yes, I agree with Gabby, and just maybe a little more detail on that. So career services can help you at a university. Undergrad departments, also graduate departments. There are some programs or some the things that certain organizations on campus that students get involved in that require an internship. So I know that Jeanie was sharing with me, she's in Launchpad, and that's one of the requirements of Launchpad. But if you get in touch with the graduate or undergraduate departments, they would know some of those types of things, and they can sort of direct you to, I know our MPA program requires an internship. So there's some programs that actually require them, and they can help you also at that end. And I just saw.
Yeah, there's a question. Do you have any suggestions on ways to make an internship beneficial for both parties when you as the organization are overwhelmed, and that's why you need an intern, but struggling with capacity, bring that person in? So it's a good question.
It is a great question. It's like the chicken and the egg situation. And I think we were exactly where, you are right now. When we first started, it felt so big that, I think that was one of the reasons that we delayed really digging into the program. And it took about a year to develop, right? And so that was part of it too, is giving it the space that it needed to be developed. We could have taken an intern the very first moment we decided we wanted interns, but we weren't ready for it. And so I will tell you that list, joking, not joking, my whiteboard list of intern projects was a really great place to start because then I could really whittle down to, what were my high priorities, what were things that I wasn't going to have to supervise as much, things that were easy to see if somebody got off track. Like those are the things that were really great for internship projects, because if you have too much oversight going on, you need to be too involved. Well, that's just going to give you more work to do. But on the other side, if you choose a project that you can't really see what the intern is doing or working on, you could get stuck in a situation where by the time you figure out something's not going well, it's now a larger project that you need to undo. And so we try and choose things that are kind of that sweet spot, that are transparent enough that we could easily see if it get off the tracks, but not as involved as I need to be working on it every day kind of a project. And so start small and be thoughtful, I think is the biggest thing that we can say, because you're going to get out of it as much as you put in. And it is work if you're going to do it right. But I will tell you the return on taking our time and spending that year has made a huge difference in the quality of the return that we're getting.
And I'll just add, I agree totally with the list. So get that whiteboard or get that list going of those things like, oh, I need to get this done or something. You probably all have your to-do list. Look through that and pull some of those off. You can always apply to the Smith internship program, which is coming pretty soon, and have us do some of that work for you ahead of time. We will want, and one of the questions on it though is what will the projects be? So we will need some kind of projects to determine if you're a good placement or not. But that would help you somewhat with not having to do interviews and things like that. I also think, and you guys can correct me here, but I think that you've probably got some of the stuff that they talked about as far as the onboarding, the screening, the offboarding, the check-ins, that sort of stuff, because you have employees. So there's probably stuff there that you can bring over, and I don't know how different the two are, but there's things there that you already sort of have some of this process in line, and maybe rather than create a whole new internship program, you could just take them through your employee process or something like that.
That's exactly what I was going to say was don't reinvent the wheel. A lot of that, exactly what you said. A lot of it was I took our staff onboarding and said, okay, this is applicable. This isn't, kept what I wanted and then got rid of what I didn't. Same thing for the offboarding. So you might already have those processes in place that you can borrow from.
Great. Well, guys, we've gone over. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have any questions, I think many of you know how to reach these ladies. You know how to reach me. So thank you so much for being here today. Bye.